Welcome to Create More Intimacy, a podcast for men. I'm Elisa Stoddard, and I help successful men stop chasing sex and start building real connection so they finally feel close, connected, and wanted again. There's a specific kind of restlessness that shows up after a man has actually started to change. Not the restlessness of being stuck. A different one. He's been doing the work. He's caught himself before the old reaction shows up. He stayed in the room instead of leaving. He said the honest thing instead of the safe thing. And some part of him is waiting for a moment that confirms it. A sign that says, yes, this is real, keep going. He checks her face for it. He listens for a softness in her voice that wasn't there before. He waits for the night when she reaches for him first. And when that moment doesn't arrive as anticipated, something in him deflates. He starts to wonder if any of it's actually landing, or if he's just quietly performing a better version of himself into a silence that isn't going to ever answer back. This is where a lot of men stall out, not because they stopped changing, but because they expected the change to announce itself. They pictured a moment or a turning point, something that would feel like crossing a finish line. And when the moment doesn't come, or it comes so quietly that they almost miss it, they start to doubt whether the work is doing anything at all. Welcome to episode 64, What Traction Actually Looks Like. When a man finally starts becoming different instead of performing different, he usually expects it to feel like relief. He pictures the moment where the work pays off. He imagines her noticing and softening and meeting him halfway. He's spent weeks or months doing something genuinely hard, staying present when it would have been much easier to shut down. And some part of him thinks that effort deserves acknowledgement. So he watches for one. He looks for conversations that go differently. He listens for a warmer tone. He tracks small signals the way he'd track a project at work, waiting for the metrics to tell him it's working. This isn't a character flaw. It's how he's operated in every other part of his life that has rewarded him. Effort in, measurable result out. He's good at this pattern. It's built his career. But a marriage doesn't return results on that schedule, and it doesn't return them in a form he's used to reading. What he doesn't expect is how long waiting for that acknowledgement can take to arrive, or how easy it is to miss when it finally does. This is one of the hardest parts of real change. It rarely confirms itself in the moment. It shows up sideways in a version of himself that stayed calm during something that used to wreck him. And he almost doesn't register it because there was no applause attached. He's so used to measuring his effort by her response that he struggles to recognize his own steadiness as the actual result. I hear a version of this from almost every man partway through us working together. He'll say something like, I have been trying to stay calmer. I communicate more. I work hard on this, and I don't know if any of it is getting through. That not knowing is uncomfortable in a specific way. It is not the discomfort of failing. It's the discomfort of not being told clearly and immediately that he's succeeding. If you've been doing this work and you're still waiting for a sign that it's working, I want to offer you something uncomfortable. The waiting itself might be the last piece of the old pattern. The part of you that still needs an outside verdict before you believe you're different. As long as you need her response, her validation to confirm the change is still, in some quiet way, about her. And that's not the same thing as it actually being yours, your change. Something in your notes to yourself, if you've been honest lately, probably sounds like this. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm not shutting down. I'm not disappearing into work. I'm showing up. That may be true. But there is a difference between showing up and fully participating. And it's a difference that she can feel acutely, even when she doesn't articulate it. Compliance looks like doing the right thing because you've learned there were right things to do. You stay calm because blowing up costs you. You ask questions because you know silence reads as absence. You check in because you understand, at least intellectually, that checking in matters. You've built a checklist out of everything that used to go wrong, and right now you're running it well. From the outside, this can look almost identical to real change. It can even feel like real change from the inside for a while. Participation is different. It's not managing the relationship anymore. It's being inside it. It's noticing what's happening between you two without needing to be prompted. It's bringing something of your own into the room instead of only responding to what she brings. It's the difference between a man who waits to be asked how he's doing and a man who offers it unprompted because he wants her to know him, not because she's asked so many times and he knows he's supposed to. A lot of men get stuck exactly here, doing all the right behaviors and still sensing that something's missing. They tell me some version of the exact same thing. I'm doing everything for her so she can be happy. And I get no connection back. I get no acknowledgement or appreciation back. And underneath that frustration is usually a harder truth. What's been missing isn't more effort. It's presence that isn't reactive. Presence that doesn't wait for her to go first. This is the thing she's actually been asking for, even in the seasons where it looked like she was asking for something smaller. Not more effort, not more tasks handled correctly necessarily, an actual partner in the room with her, not a man executing a to-do list or a plan to avoid losing her. She can tell the difference between a husband who is managing the relationship well and a husband who is actually in it with her. One feels like competence. The other feels like closeness and connection. They're not the same, no matter how much the first one resembles the second on paper. Here's something worth sitting with honestly. She isn't waiting for you to be perfect. She's tired, and midlife has made her less willing to keep accepting less than what she actually wants. That is not a threat, it's just where she is. The years where she might have quietly absorbed a little more distance, a little more disengagement, and told herself it was fine, they're behind her. She's not interested in fine anymore. What she's watching for isn't dramatic. It's whether you're actually here or whether you're still, underneath the new behavior, managing her. She notices when you ask real questions instead of a checklist question. She notices when you stay curious about something that used to make you defensive. She notices when you bring up something hard without being cornered into it first. None of these are large. All of them are data. She has been collecting data on you for a long time, far longer than you've even been aware there was anything to notice. And here's the part that's easy to miss. She's not grading you against some idealized version of a husband. She's comparing this version of you to the version she's been living with for years, the one who was present physically and absent everywhere else. Against that comparison, small shifts read as enormous. A version of you that stays instead of shutting down a difficult conversation is not a small thing to her, even if it feels small to you, because you're used to measuring yourself against some larger, more dramatic standard of change. This doesn't mean she'll say so out loud right away. Trust doesn't rebuild on the same timeline as behavior changes. She may still be bracing, still waiting to see if this holds, still protecting herself from getting hopeful too early. that's not evidence that nothing is working. It's evidence that she's been disappointed before and isn't ready to celebrate a pattern she hasn't watched hold yet. Hope, for her, has a cost. She's paid it before on your behalf and been let down. Her caution isn't rejection, it's self-protection, the same kind you've likely been practicing yourself for years. What she wants isn't more effort aimed at her. It's a full partner who isn't waiting for permission to show up as one. Traction usually doesn't arrive as some big breakthrough. It arrives as a moment so ordinary you almost don't clock it until later. It might be an argument that starts the way lots of arguments start, and then it doesn't go where it used to go. You feel the old pull to defend yourself, and for the first time, you don't. You stay with what she's actually saying instead of what you're afraid she means. The conversation ends with both of you still in the room, which maybe didn't happen that often before. No slammed doors, no retreat to another part of the house, just two people who worked through something hard and are still standing near each other afterward. Or it might be even smaller than that. An evening where she leans into you without being asked, without it being a special occasion, without either of you making it a moment. It passes in seconds, so quickly that you almost miss it. You might not even register what happened until later that night when you're replaying the evening and realize something was different without being able to name it. These moments matter, not because they prove the work is finished, but because they're the first evidence that something underneath the relationship has actually shifted, not just your behavior on top of it. You didn't manufacture that moment through effort. It happened because the emotional environment between you changed enough to allow it. That's a super important distinction. You can't force this kind of moment into existence the way you might force a conversation or a date night. It shows up because the ground underneath both of you has changed slightly, not because you scheduled it. This is usually the point where a man finally exhales. Sure, not everything is fixed, but he has proof now, even just a small bit of proof, that becoming different was never just a private exercise. It was actually reaching her, and that exhale matters. It's often the first moment in a long time where he isn't bracing for her response, where he can simply notice what happened between them without needing it to mean something larger than it is. It would be convenient if this were the part of the story where everything resolves. It isn't. And pretending otherwise would do you a disservice. Traction is not the same as arrival. The old patterns don't disappear because you had one good week or one honest conversation that landed differently than the ones before it. They resurface, usually at the worst possible times. Usually when you're tired or stressed or she says something that hits an old nerve. You'll catch yourself halfway into an old reaction, defensiveness rising up, the urge to shut down or fix or disappear into a task. And for a moment, it will feel like none of the work took. The test isn't whether the pattern comes back, it's whether you catch it faster than you used to, and whether you're honest about it instead of pretending it didn't happen. This is where the difference between performing and becoming finally shows itself clearly. Performing needs an audience. It needs her watching. It needs her responding and validating. It needs some kind of external confirmation to keep going. The moment nobody's watching, performing has nothing left to sustain it. Becoming doesn't work that way at all. It holds even in the moments she doesn't notice, even when nobody is grading you, because it isn't actually about her response anymore. It's about who you've decided to be inside your own life, independent of whether tonight is the night she notices. That is the shift this whole series has been pointing toward. Not a man who's fixed his marriage through better behavior, A man who has become someone steadier, more honest, more capable of real partnership, whether or not she ever fully catches up to it. The relationship benefits from that, often more than either of you expects, but it was never the only reason to do it. If you've been doing this work and wondering whether any of it is actually landing, ask yourself something more useful than whether she noticed yet. Are you still checking out when things get hard, or are you staying? Are you still managing her reactions, or are you actually participating in the life you share? Are you doing this because you're afraid of losing her, or because you no longer want to be the man who wasn't fully there? The answer to that last question is where traction actually lives. It's not in her face, it's in yours. If this episode is landing for you and you want to go deeper into what real traction looks like in your own marriage, I'm hosting a free webinar on July 21st at 1 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Central, and 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll walk through exactly what separates men who see lasting change from men who stay stuck performing it. You can register at the link in the show notes or at elisastoddard.com. And if you'd rather talk through your specific situation directly, you can always book a 30-minute relationship clarity call with me at elisastoddard.com. We'll look at what's actually happening, what is possible, and whether working together makes sense. I am going to tell you about how I work. I'll also make sure that you leave with more clarity than you came in with. Book your call now. Take care. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being here. If something in this episode hit home, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more men find the support they need. And if you are ready to get help or take the next step, you'll find the link to book a free call in the show notes. I'll see you next time.